Tsunami is a threat to the lives and properties of communities living alongside the ocean. But we cannot just abandon our homes, our properties, our livelihood, and our communities established near the shore. The ocean had been and will always be a part of our lives. Hence, the purpose of this film is to increase awareness and promote preparedness to lessen the impact when tsunamis strike. Share what you learn. Knowing the right information may save your properties, your life, and the lives of those you love. Tsunami is a Japanese term meaning harbor waves. It is a series of giant waves generated primarily by earthquakes occurring below the sea or near the shore, less commonly by submarine landslides, infrequently by underwater volcanic eruptions, and very rarely by large meteor impacts in the ocean. But not all submarine earthquakes can cause a tsunami. A tsunami-genic earthquake has a magnitude of 6.5 or higher. This should be strong enough to vertically displace parts of the sea floor up to several meters over a large area of 100,000 square kilometers and disturb the mass of water over it. As the tsunami waves reach the shallow waters of the coast, their speed drastically decreases. As the waves slow down, the water can pile up into a wall of destruction tens of meters or more in height. There are two types of tsunamis, distant and local. A distant tsunami has its destructive effects extending up to 1,000 kilometers from the source. In this case, there is 1 hour to 24 hours lead time before the tsunami waves reach the Philippines. The 1700 Cascadia earthquake generated a distant tsunami that crossed the Pacific and reached the Philippines 14 to 16 hours after the earthquake. The December 26, 2004 tsunami generated by the magnitude 9.0 earthquake with epicenter offshore of Sumatra, Indonesia, is another example of a distant tsunami. The tsunami waves propagated from the epicenter toward the other side of the Indian Ocean, affecting all coastal countries around it, even as far as the eastern coastline of Africa. During the advance and retreat of tsunami waves, they flood large expanses of land with water and debris, destroy vegetation, buildings, and infrastructures, and bring with them movable objects like cars and boats, which intensify their destructive power. It claimed a total of 300,000 lives, rendered more than 1 million people homeless, and cost billions of dollars of damage to properties. This made it the worst tsunami catastrophe in history and the first known basin-wide destructive tsunami in the Indian Ocean. The geographic location and geologic setting of the Philippines make it prone to various hazards. Its archipelago lies between two major tectonic plates, moving toward each other, the Eurasian Plate and the Pacific Plate. This collision produces faults, or breaks or zones of weakness in the rock, and trenches, or the deepest parts of the oceans where plates subduct. The Philippines is transected by active faults, or faults which had moved for the last 10,000 years. Off the shore, it is bordered by several trenches. Active faults and trenches are called earthquake generators. The movements along these are responsible for the high seismicity of the Philippines. When the extent of destruction is confined only within 100 kilometers from the source, the tsunami is classified now as local tsunami, the second type of tsunami. Locally generated tsunamis can occur within very short time, with the first waves reaching the nearest shoreline from the epicenter in 2 to 5 minutes after the main shock. Due to insufficient time to transmit official warning from the national agencies to the coastal communities, residents must be prepared to evacuate and move to higher ground once signs of impending tsunami are observed. The Philippines is no stranger to tsunamis generated by local earthquakes. The map shows the areas affected by tsunamis from 1589 to 1995, with a total of approximately 40 tsunami events in 400 years. On August 17, 1976, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake with epicenter offshore along the Cotabato Trench generated a tsunami that devastated the coastline bordering the Moro Gulf. The sea receded about 3 kilometers just after the earthquake. 10 minutes later, it roared back to the shore in 3 succeeding waves. Casualties numbered to thousands, while damage to properties amounted to millions. The province of Oriental Mindoro was not spared from the fury of tsunamis. On November 15, 1994, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake occurred near Verde Island, Batangas. The shoreline regressed about 50 to 100 kilometers shortly after the earthquake, and less than 5 minutes later, a 6-meter high tsunami wave hit the coastline from Puerto Galera to Pinamalayan. Survivors recalled that the approaching tsunami was accompanied by a very audible, jet-like, or gush of strong rain sound. Livelihood and properties were damaged. A total of 78 persons died, were injured and missing, and while others were rendered homeless. Clearly, tsunamis pose dangers to coastal communities. Although they cannot be prevented, their impacts can be lessened through tsunami preparedness and mitigation measures. Tsunami preparedness and mitigation can be done in 2 ways. First, through structural measures like building seawalls and dikes. However, they are expensive. Second, through non-structural measures, such as tsunami hazard and risk mapping. Equally important mitigation activity is the conduct of information, education, and communication, or IEC campaigns, to elevate the awareness of the public and educate them on tsunami facts and natural signs, and how to appropriately react during an earthquake and a tsunami. The community can also prepare tsunami evacuation plans and establish early warning systems using indigenous materials like matingaos and church bells to send out alerts. Tsunami signage can be put up to distinguish areas of high tsunami hazard, to show routes to evacuation sites, and mark high grounds used as evacuation sites. A regular conduct of earthquake and tsunami drills to put into practice how the residents should react and evacuate can also aid them in the event of actual earthquake and tsunami. PHIVOLCS, being the government agency mandated to study and monitor volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, have been proactive in averting the disasters that may arise from these geologic phenomena. One of its programs is the Tsunami Risk Mitigation Program, executed through the funding support from DOST Grant and Aid. Although proven dangerous in many ways, tsunamis need not be disastrous. Be vigilant. So here are some important facts to remember. Tsunamis are almost always caused by offshore earthquakes. Tsunami consists of a series of waves, with interval from a few minutes to an hour or more. Tsunami waves can travel at speeds of 800 kilometers per hour in deep ocean and drastically slow down to a speed of tens of kilometers near the shore. Tsunami waves can be as high as 10 meters at the shoreline and move inland several hundred meters to as far as 2 kilometers. Distant tsunamis generated in the Pacific Ocean may take 1 hour to 1 day to travel before waves reach the Philippines. Locally generated tsunamis have a period of less than 10 minutes between the earthquake and arrival of waves. Hence, people must at least know some natural signs of an approaching tsunami. First, a felt earthquake, especially along the coastal areas. Second, unusual sea level change, like sudden seawater retreat and or rise. And lastly, rumbling sound of approaching waves. When these signs are observed, immediately move to higher ground.